You're listening to the Custom Built Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to discuss permits and inspections, and they're not that bad, so stay tuned. All right, let's discuss permitting and inspections and what that means for your job, your timeline, all of that. Now, not every job will require permitting, and maybe not all states and regions require that, but here in South Carolina, we do require inspections. So I'm going to speak based off of my experience from my South Carolina inspections and the jurisdictions that I work in primarily. So that's all over the Charleston area. However, we're talking about multiple counties, multiple towns, and there are some nuances to each one. So, for example, there are some towns that you need to either go through the town and then the county of Charleston, or if you are located in a specific town, your house or property may be annexed to the city. So maybe you are actually going through the city for your inspections. So I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of Charleston specifically, but I am going to talk about what inspections look like and how they can look different from jurisdiction. Now, it doesn't matter as far as what our jurisdictions, the ones that I'm dealing with, are, but it will help shed some light on maybe some of the jurisdictions that you might need to work in and how you can work around that or communicate that with your contractor specifically and with the scheduling and what that looks like for your home renovation. So you might have multiple inspections on a specific area depending on how detailed they are and if there are multiple factors that come into it. Maybe you have different types of foundations, like maybe you do have slab, maybe you do have piers, maybe it's, whatever, different elevations, right? So knowing what your job and your project is going to entail will help your contractor and you understand what's going to be coming. So we have footers, and then you have your framing and your rough framing. So sheathing and strapping, which is here in Charleston, making sure that they're hurricane safe and nothing's going to be moving when the wind blows a little bit, when we get that little tropical storm coming through. You have MEPs, which stands for mechanicals, electrical, and plumbing. You might hear us talk as a home builder or your contractor. They might just call them mechanicals. They might call them MEPs. It's kind of used interchangeably, but basically that is all your plumbing, your electrical, and your HVAC work is wrapped up into an MEP inspection. You might have here in Charleston, in South Carolina, we have to do rough electrical, rough plumbing, rough gas, and rough HVAC. Now, some places might allow you to ask and request all of those at once. Some might require you to do them one at a time. This is where it's going to be really important to understand your jurisdiction, know where you're located, so you know who you're calling, who your contractor will be calling. Because if you're doing an addition and you are not a licensed builder and you have zero experience in building a home, please do not try to build a home by yourself. Maybe get a little bit of help, maybe have a mentor there with you, but this is still, you want to know where you are located, where, as far as like what jurisdiction and who you need to submit your permittings and inspection request to. So we have foundation, we got framing, we got sheathing, we have mechanicals or MEPs, and then next will be insulation. Okay, this isn't necessarily in a very specific order, especially when it comes to like the sheathing, the framing, and the MEPs. However, you're going to need to do your foundation first, and then insulation will be after framing and sheathing and MEPs. We have our foundation. We have our framing, which goes all the way up to the roofing, same with sheathing. You got your MEPs, and you have insulation next, okay? So once you finish your insulation, you are smooth sailing until you're getting towards the end of the work. And so drywall's up, everything else should be going smoothly interior-wise, and then you get to the end when you're getting to like the last month or so of your home renovation. And now you're looking at final MEPs. So you're going to have your trades come back and they're going to basically top out is what we call it, or trim out. You might be calling that. So they're putting in your toilets, your faucets, like all of the final trim pieces are coming in. Same thing with HVAC. They're putting your returns in, your electrical is putting in your light fixtures, they're putting all the devices in if they haven't already, and then capping everything. And so at that point, you're going to have your final MEPs, so HVAC, electrical, plumbing, gas. Sometimes you could do gas and plumbing at the same time. And then you're going to have your final build. Sometimes they require, at least here in Charleston, to do like a blow test from your HVAC, make sure things are efficient. But you're going to have that final build. Then you get the okay that the work is complete and finished, and you, as a homeowner, can move back into your home. Now, why is there nuances around permitting? Why do they seem scary? I mean, really it comes down to making sure that your contractor is making sure they are scheduling appropriately. So here in Charleston, I know where certain jurisdictions are going to take me longer to get an inspector to come in versus others where I can call it a day before and they're in. So what I'm going to do for a job that's located in a jurisdiction that takes a little bit longer to process their permits, I am going to set reminders and due dates for when I need to call in inspections, which tend to be about a couple of weeks out. So on my schedule, I have call in your mechanicals, call in your foundation inspections. And then I'm also, as the builder, I am making sure that I am communicating this with my trades. So this will allow us to make sure we're hitting these dates. And I'm showing them before we even start this job. Okay, so this is where that pre-construction and planning is really important, but this is where the pre-construction and planning is really, really important when it is your builder or your project manager that will be taking over this, making sure this will be where your project manager is overseeing the work and making sure everything is staying on track and on schedule. These are really important dates to hit because you cannot move forward with your job until these areas have passed inspection. So if your foundation doesn't pass inspection and it takes your trades longer to come back and fix something, then now you're already off the rip. You're behind, right? So you want to make sure that when you are planning your inspections that you are having them, like you as in the home, not the homeowner, but you homeowner can have these discussions with your builder, okay? So your builder really wants to make sure that they are maybe not the experts, but that they are familiar with the jurisdictions and how to handle and work with them. You know, when you start working in multiple jurisdictions in different areas, if you live in an area that's not quite as divided in jurisdictions like it is here in Charleston, it might be a lot easier. Your builder might be on a very friendly basis with the inspectors and know how to work and talk with them and make sure things move a lot faster. That's ideal. We would love that kind of relationship with all the inspections and inspectors that we work with. But again, different jurisdictions require so much more. In fact, even on the permitting side, when you are getting ready to get your the building permit in general, it goes through a lot of different areas. So there's some jurisdictions where if you live in the town, right, and you have to go through town and then county, you need to get zoning through the town. And then you can get the building through the county. So you can't do anything with the county until you get zoning passed at the town level. So here it's very tricky, and by tricky I mean it's just more of a nuisance than anything else. It's just extra steps. But even when we talk about like more exclusive areas like Kiowa or Seabrook, now you're talking about like ARB, which is like making sure that it's kind of like a big HOA and making sure that if you're doing any exterior work, that it fits in with the entire look. Downtown Charleston, we have the historical association, so we need to make sure that if you are doing anything on exterior work, that again, it fits within Charleston historic guidelines. And so they're very strict in some areas, and you need to go through a few hoops before you even get to the permit until you receive your permit. So when you're putting in that much effort to get to your permit, you better make sure you're getting your inspections on point and ready for when that happens. Now, back to if your inspection fails, as the home builder, as the project manager, I'm also building in a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that if something doesn't pass, we miss something, we just need to add a fastener somewhere, something simple, something little, something new that we just didn't know about. There's that little bit of space where my trade that's supposed to be lined up next. So if we're doing, let's say, sheathing and strapping, and we miss a strap somewhere, and I have insulation and drywall lined up to go. Well, I guess I wouldn't have drywall lined up to go, but if I had insulation ready to go, but I didn't have my strapping or something ready to go before that, I can't have my installation crew coming in. And if I can't have my installation crew come in when I have them scheduled and they have another job lined up, I might be waiting on them. And that, again, will delay the project. And that is what we want to avoid. These are the types of things that are easily avoided if you are able to plan strategically. And these are things that you want to talk with your builder to see how they're building out your schedule, how they operate with the jurisdiction that you're in, if they know the inspectors, if they know the office, at least how they operate. I'm not on super friendly basis with a lot of the inspectors. However, I do make sure that if I have any questions about permitting, I start early on and I start bringing those questions up ahead. So then that way I have a full understanding of what's coming and what to expect. So then that way we try to avoid any of these hurdles down the line. And as your home builder, I would hope that they are also looking out for your best interest in these. Also, don't get too alarmed if something fails the first time. Now, if things are continuing to fail and they're failing over similar things, I would caution then. I would try to find out what's happening, why are these not getting fixed, and also why weren't they caught. Typically, when you have a new build, very specifically, or just like any type of big structural build, you're going to need engineer drawings. And engineer drawings come with everything that you need to build this house or addition or whatever it is that you're doing in your home. So if you have engineer drawings, your builders really should be able to build it to these plans. And if there's an issue with the engineer plans and that's how they're being built and they're failing inspection, then it might just be something simple as they're using the wrong ties. The wrong ties were called out, and how do we fix that? But if the builder is building it different than the engineer plans, that's a major red flag, and you want to start having those conversations about what is happening. And then maybe even talk to the inspectors yourself to maybe get an understanding of why something keeps failing and what their side of the story is, because your contractor might try to, save face. All right, let's go back and review inspections and what to expect during each stage, and understand that typically it's a very front-heavy time for inspections when you're starting with a new build. And that's going to look at if you're building a whole new home or an addition, you're looking at foundation, you're looking at framing, you're looking at sheathing and strapping, you're looking at MEPs or mechanicals, which include your HVAC, your plumbing, and your electrical. And then we're talking about insulation. And then from there, once you pass all of those, it's typically smooth sailing and no extra surprises unless somebody does something that they shouldn't have. And then if that's the case, your home builder should be fixing that in a very, very timely manner. Anyway, no surprises once you pass those inspections. And then once you get towards the end of the job, you have your final inspection. So your final building, your final mechanicals, and then, whatever's required at that point. So inspections are really great because what they're doing is ensuring that your home is being built safely and securely and properly. So don't try to avoid permitting and inspections because it's an extra dollar. I mean, what would you rather do? Have a home that you know and have peace of mind that your home is built properly and safely with the inspections and the paper trail to verify that, or to build a home where you hope that the home builder that you hired did it properly and that they actually did call in inspections and that they were able to pass all the inspections. If your home builder is resistant to wanting to pull permits for a job that clearly needs to have permits, then I would say that's a red flag and run the other way. You do not want to work with that homeowner. Why don't they want to pull permits? That would be my main question. What are they trying to hide? Sometimes it could just be that they don't want to pay the cost of a business license. Again, here in Charleston, multiple jurisdictions, as a home builder, if I'm going to pull a permit in one town, even though I work primarily in another area of Charleston, I need to have a business license in every single one of those jurisdictions that I'm building in. So sometimes it is a cost thing, but still, if you want to have a reputable, trustworthy trade or home builder, they need to be licensed in the area that they're going to be working in, so that way they can pull the permits appropriately. Also make sure that they are a licensed builder, because a licensed builder won't be able to pull permits. And so if they're being resistant about pulling a permit, are they able to pull those licenses? Are they a residential builder? Are they a general contractor? Those are questions you want to make sure before you even start any work. If somebody tells you that they have pulled permits, there should be evidence of that. There should be paperwork that shows that you should be able to see the paper trail. You should be able to call your jurisdiction, town hall, whoever, and find out more information about the permits pulled on your home, and then find out about inspections. So those would be some red flags if you are working with somebody and they don't want to pull a permit. If they're unable to pull a permit, then that means they're not a licensed builder, and for certain jobs you need to have a licensed builder. And also make sure that they are not lying to you. So look for a permit box. If a permit box isn't needed for your job, then maybe it's taped on the inside of your house, from a window, on a door. Permits need to be posted for jurisdictions, for city to see that there are actual permits on there. If there are no permits pulled on your job, your town, your jurisdiction can do a cease order and have you stop. Have work stop completely. And that's another thing you don't want when it comes to your job, because now we're talking about time and money. And again, the trades that were lined up to come do the work are unable to come do the work because there's nothing to work on right now. Now, you can assume that if your contractor didn't pull a permit, they're probably not as organized by scheduling, so maybe that would be a non-issue, but still, it's still time. It's still getting out of that trouble, and now you're going to be under a microscope. So permitting is a safety net, not just for you, but for the home that you're going to be living in. And it also allows you to keep your builder accountable and the trades that they hire as well. So permits are not meant to be scary. They're not meant to be annoying hurdles. They are necessary measures to make sure that your home is safe and built correctly. And yes, they are and can be frustrating. And yes, they can feel like, especially if an inspector that feels like they need to really do an extra thorough job and don't always communicate very clearly that what the issues are. I'll just back up a little bit. I've had a job where it wasn't my job. This was when I first started, and I was shadowing another project manager, and their job, they kept failing inspection, and every time the inspector came, they'd fail them for something else, but they weren't catching them at each inspection. So they would come in and say, these hangers are wrong, you need to fix them. And then they'd fix that, thinking that was the only thing that was wrong, and the inspector would come back and fail them for something else. And it's like, why aren't you giving me this whole, full, cohesive reason why we failed our framing inspection? So if you're running into something like that, sure, that can be a nuisance and be really frustrating. Try to be patient. try to have a conversation with the inspector. Make sure, maybe be present when the inspector's there. It's not a bad idea to be there while they're doing their walkthrough. Now, you might not know when they're going to be there, so you might just be parking on your property for the whole day until they show up. But it might not be a bad idea to be there to catch what might be passed or what might not pass, and why, and what do they see. And just know, again, that permits and inspections are here for your safety. And if your general contractor or your builder is reluctant to even pull them, then I would say that's a red flag, and to think about who you're going to be working with. Now, there will be some times where you don't need to have a permit, and that would be anything that's like light framing, nothing structural, plumbing, that can be a gray area. I mean, if you ask your jurisdiction if you're going to need to have a permit and an inspection to swap out a toilet, they will probably tell you yes. However, do you need to have an inspection and a permit to swap out a toilet? I will leave that as a gray area for you to decide and not tell you one way or the other. But anything that's not really structural, or, if there's some light framing, if you're not moving anything that's electrical or messing with anything that of the mechanics other than like maybe swapping a toilet or a faucet, I would be more hesitant, or I would say that's probably a safer space of you don't probably need a permit for it. So light jobs probably don't need permitting and inspections. However, any big structural jobs, you will be required to have permits and inspections. And again, I cannot say this anymore, or I will say this all the time. If your contractor is pushing back on permits and inspections on any large structural jobs, that is a red flag. Find somebody else. And that will be my 20 cents for today on inspections and permits. Please make sure to share this with anyone that's going through a home renovation that might be questioning whether they need to have permits or inspections, or if their home builder is pushing against that too. Again, look through understand where your home, understand your jurisdiction so you can do a little bit of research prior to hiring a home builder. So then that way you have a little bit of information before you even go right into that conversation of whether or not you need that permit. Your town hall, whoever your zoning or who your building office is, they are always more than willing, in my experience, to give you the information that you need to let you know what is and what is not allowed for you to build. So make sure you reach out to that jurisdiction, your building offices that can help you understand those permits more. All right, I hope this was helpful. Please make sure to share this with anyone going through a home build right now. And if you love these episodes, please let me know and leave a review, and make sure to share and subscribe. And I will catch you next time. Hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day. Bye-bye. Thank you for hanging out today. If you liked what you heard, please make sure you hit subscribe, and I hope to see you again next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.